Hello and welcome to Oak Road Hatter. It's the end of an international break and we're headed into a big one for Luton Town. I'm joined by Jamie Castle and Adam Driscoll as always. Jamie, how are you?
Yeah, feeling good. As always, no real break for me. I'm always on international duty, so fresh back from Helsinki. Lovely little weekend away for those who haven't been. Well worth a trip. But yeah, I think feeling a little bit refreshed. Obviously, not the best end to the last chunk of fixtures. But and then obviously a pretty enticing game to get us started again on this next batch before the break in November. So lots to talk about, no doubt. Looking forward to it.
And how are you, Adam?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm all good. I'm a bit jealous of Jamie's little trip to Helsinki, but had a good couple of weeks distraction from the football and kind of refreshed and ready to see what we can do in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and as Jamie has hinted at there, we have got a big match this weekend. It is the visit of the lot down the road. It's Watford at Kenilworth Road. And we'll be talking all about that in today's episode. But before that, don't forget to follow us on socials at Oak Road Hatter. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, and rate us 5 stars on your audio listening platform. We really appreciate all the support, and we hope to give back with everything we produce. But yeah, we mentioned it there. I mean, let's get straight into it. Jamie will come onto your little globe trot in a bit, but yeah, I think it's pretty appropriate to talk all things Luton first. So, I mean, first of all, Rob Edwards is still a Luton manager, Adam. There was rumours circulating all over the place. Was it last week or the week before now? I can't even remember now when it is. Probably the week before last that he could be on his way out. There was talk on Twitter. There was sort of talk between people in sort of private circles, but
Mm.
the clubs put an end to that talk when they posted a photo of him taking training sessions. And what do you think about him still being there? And do you think it has put people on side?
I mean, I was surprised when I kind of logged onto Twitter or X or whatever, like what was it, middle of last week or something, and we were sort of there was a lot of pages sort of spreading the news that he'd gone. And I know we were chatting in our groups about things as well. I was a little bit surprised to see that, even the rumours, given the fact that I said before I don't think the board are going to take action anytime soon. So it was a bit surprising. I think for quite a lot of people, a lot of people looked at that tweet and they saw the rounds and they suddenly thought, "Oh God, actually, I don't know whether I like this or not." So I think actually the rumor has got a few people that were on the fence probably back in his corner. Um, and let's be honest, like everyone's going to be in his corner this weekend in particular, including those that have been critical, like me. Um, but yeah, I think there are a few that are probably thinking, actually, I don't like that rumor. I hope it's not true. And at the moment, it turns out, not to be true. So yeah, let's see how the next few weeks go. But as I say, he certainly has everybody's backing this weekend as a minimum.
Yeah, I think I'd agree completely with what Adam said. I think I was certainly on the Edwards in side of the fence. I wouldn't say I was quite on the fence just yet, but yeah, I think seeing the rumor and doing the rounds, there was just that tinge of sadness about it ending that way because obviously no matter what's happening right now, he's still the manager that made us realise our dreams and get to the Premier League. I think regardless of the work that Nathan did before that, and again we can get in great detail as to how much Edwards contributed towards that promotion, but ultimately what's written into the history books is that Rob Edwards got us promoted to the Prem, and that will never change. So it was a tinge of sadness that if it was to end that way, then yeah, you sort of feel like what could have been. So yeah, I hope that it brings some Luton fans together. That there will still be some dissenting views, and clearly that doesn't mean that tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but Saturday is a free hit, because not only A, do we want the result, but B, we want a good performance, and we want to see that the 2 weeks of work that's being put in is sort of benefited the team, and will allow us to at least take the game to Watford, and if not win, at least sort of put in a strong performance and show that things are going in the right direction. but yeah, overall pleased that he's staying. But that doesn't, for me, I think, wipe out, I guess, the tough start to the season. I think he still obviously has a lot of work to do in trying to get us back on the right path, because if we're in the same position in 4 or 5 weeks, then I think the conversation will just sort of rear its head again. And yeah, I think all of the sort of the goodwill will go completely.
Yeah, I agree with you both there. I think there were people on the fence, and there were people. There was some quiet people saying they think he should go, but I think the rumor of him, when the rumor was going around that was saying he was actually going, I think that made everyone realise, oh, the best thing we've got is actually with us at the moment. I think that's probably cemented that thought for people. But as you mentioned there, Jamie, football is sort of it's short memories in football, and it's all about this weekend. And obviously, this weekend is the visit of Watford, Rob Edwards' former club, who he was with very briefly, but I'm sure he doesn't hold any strong feelings for them, as he's probably hinted at previously, or has hinted at previously. Um, Unfortunately for us, they are actually in pretty good form going into this one. They've had a good start to the season. They're in and around the playoff positions under themselves a very young manager in Tom Cleverley, Jamie, who I'm sure is someone you've watched following England, unless that was slightly before your time
I
following
think
England.
slightly before my time. Yeah, yeah,
I just remember him being sort of in and around that England squad when he was in that United team. But yeah, he's
yeah.
now the Watford manager, and he started well there.
He has. Obviously, personally, a little bit surprising. I won't hide behind the fact that I thought it would just could be another manager that they would hire and give a full time contract to, and then sack pretty quickly. But to be fair to him, he's managed to put together a decent team. And as you say, they started the season really well. They've had a little bit of a wobble sort of earlier on before the last 3 games. Obviously, they had two very good home wins most recently. But what I would say is that they're a very good home side and maybe not a very good away side. I think they're unbeaten at home, but probably I think there's only one win in 4 away from home. So hopefully we can use that to our advantage. I certainly don't think Cleverly has shown enough to suggest that he is on the path to becoming an elite level British manager. I think if anything, it's probably more rub of the green and strong form rather than actually anything tactically that suggests, oh, he's actually pretty good tactically and could go on to bigger and better things. So hopefully, certainly on the weekend he shows an element of inconsistency, and a sort of manager like him. I think you look back to was it Lee Johnson at Bristol City, where he was a good manager but had very streaky levels of sort of like going sort of 5 games without a win, then going 5 games without defeat, and sort of flip flopping between that. And I think probably Tom Cleverley is going to be in that same sort of bracket. So hopefully they sort of continue their string of away defeats. I think they went to Preston most recently and were pretty poor by all accounts, lost 3-0. So fingers crossed that they come to the Kenny in that same sort of shape and form that they've been in away from home, and we can get the 3 points.
Yeah, obviously they lost away from home at Preston most recently. I mean, ironically, Osmarhich was the one who scored twice, who then got banned. Was it the day after because of
Yeah,
his bite on was it Owen Beck of Blackburn? So I'm sure there were some Watford fans that were pretty unhappy about him playing in the first place. But no, you've mentioned they're fairly good. Well, they're good side at home and then inconsistent away from home. But we go into the game in pretty poor form all around, Adam. We haven't won in our last 3. The last win was obviously that 2-1 win against Sheffield Wednesday when we really scraped through. So, I mean, things haven't been looking for good for us really compared to them at all. But this is a great opportunity to get everyone back on side.
Yeah, it's a massive opportunity. I think I said before on our pod a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, I think everyone would take the result on Saturday. But for me, a good performance needs to be with it. Um, Ideally, it needs to be with it because we haven't played well in really any of the 9 games so far. I think a win would be amazing, but it still would put question marks in my head in terms of like how much more confidence does that give us than we've got now. So I'd love to see. a convincing performance by the majority and a win. We do have a very tough run of games coming up, don't we? So yeah, I think we need something to lift us, into that run of games that are coming up, because they are a lot harder in the next 9 or 10 than we've had in the first 9 or 10. But yeah, fingers crossed it will kickstart our season if we can get a win. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's gonna be intimidating. We need to make it intimidating as well. We need everyone behind the team, behind the manager, and play on that intensity that Kenilworth Road can provide. Thinking back to the game, 2 or 3 years ago, it was they were we were going into it in form, the 2-0 home win. They were coming into it, bang out of form, and it's kind of flipped on its head now. So yeah, we need to be as involved and behind the team as we can be on Saturday.
I'm not as sure in terms of the performance. Obviously, performance is super important. We obviously want to see the team play well and deserve the 3 points. But I think we're probably at a point where even if we play bad but get the 3 points, I think that is also very, very acceptable. I think we're at the point where we just need a bit of confidence, and I think to win at home to your arch rivals, with a sold out Kenilworth Road, and I just think that would just bring the place together, give the players some confidence, especially if Adebayo and or Morris get a goal, and if we get a clean sheet would also be great. So I do think it would be absolutely okay to put in an okay, maybe a little bit subpar performance and get the 3 points. Now, if we struggle to draw, then again, yeah, I completely agree. There's question marks, and obviously if we lose and we are awful, then that's also a big red flag. If we lose and play really well, then I think that's probably less so. Obviously, we'd want to win the game. But if we lose marginally and we play really well, then whilst obviously on the face of it, disappointment because the rivals have got one over us. I think from a bit more of a sort of a football hat on, I think you'd go into the sort of the next one of fixtures. Again, the one afterwards is Sunderland at home, a very tough game under the lights. You go into that game with a bit more confidence as well. So I think the performance is only really important if we don't win or if we fail to win. But yeah, at this point, I just take 3 points at any cost. I think it's super important to not let them get one over us, but just to get 3 more points on the board and try and get a bit of confidence going into what is a really tough run of fixtures.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I agree with you there, Jamie. I think what matters in this next one, just purely because of what the game is, and it's a derby game, is just winning the game. Even if it's a scraped 1-0 win, when it's just sort of scraped over the line, we might not play that well. I think just getting that win is crucial. And you could probably ask most fans of any club across the country, would you rather beat your rivals playing badly or narrowly lose or draw but play well? And I think most, or if not all, would say they want to win just they don't care how they play. And I think that's probably what will reflect on Saturday, and I'm sure that'll be the mood going around the ground. But the concern may be that if we don't start well and we're looking like we're not really in the game, that sort of that sort of that Kenny crowd that we're hoping will be, and we know will be really on it and really against those Watford players, might start to turn on us a little bit. I wanted to talk about the Watford players that are sort of going to be a threat for us, and also we'll move on and look at our players that can cause them serious problems as well. There was a couple that we discussed before we came on, and that was the likes of Kwadwo Bar, Edo Kayembe, and a couple of others. Adam, who do you think is going to be their main threat and could cause us the most problems?
Well, I mean, I think Chak Vitadze is going to be a massive player for them. I've got a couple of mates, Watford fans. They really talk about him with a lot of excitement. And maybe not the fact that he's banging in the goals every week, because I don't think he's there yet. But I think his general play, his skill, his technique, is someone that they are really excited about. And I certainly think he has the technique and the potential to be the next one off their conveyor belt of moving into the Prem, as they've seen with other players before. So yeah, I think he'll be one. He'll be one to watch. He'll be a key player. I mean, they're also raving about where's he gone? What's his name? Barr. I can't remember his first name. It remains to be seen whether or not he will start the game or whether he'll be on the bench. But he's another one I think with huge potential in kind of those attacking areas. So yeah, they'd be the two that I flagged. Tom Ince is coming back to Kenilworth Road. He was obviously hugely impactful in his time at Luton. Really a Luton legend. So hope he gets a good reception and round of applause as well.
Yeah, if you're not aware of Tom Ince's legendary status at Luton, then where have you been all these years? He was an absolute goal scoring machine. No, in all seriousness, they have got some threats that could cause problems, but we also have some threats, Jamie, that could cause them problems. And they do have a strange defensive unit, really, when you look at who starts sometimes or who starts usually across that back three. They've got Matty Pollock on sort of a right of a back three, and Ryan Porteous, who had a horrible Euros for Scotland, but I'm sure Watford fans don't really care about that too much. And then in the centre, I'd completely forgotten he was still around. They've got Angelo Ogbonna. So, I mean, there was a stat going round in the last championship round of fixtures. It was just us and Watford that played with sort of a back three, a back five, and we had a real strange formation against Sheffield United. So I'm not even sure you could count us in that. But with us attacking against another back three, does that give us more of a threat, Jamie?
I think it's more than just system v system. I think, as you say, I think the defensive unit is not the best. I think they've let in sort of certainly double digit, sort of maybe 13, 14 goals so far. So they're clearly prone to conceding quite a few. I think they've got players at the back like I think Ogbonna and Porteous, who I think on their day can be very good, but also on their day can put in absolute stinkers. I think that there was a game for was it against Hungary for Scotland where Porteous was just an absolute nightmare, and then likewise Ogbonna for West Ham put in a few stinkers, but at the same time he had a few good games as well. So I hope it's a game for Carlton Morris to really get on them. I think for me, obviously, we'll come on to the team, but no brainer that Morris comes in. If we can get Carlton Morris back up to the centre forward that we know he can be, he can definitely cause some real serious problems against Ogbonna and Porteous. And then you've got obviously more inexperienced names in terms of Pollock and Morris that might come in as well. So yeah, certainly can be got out from a back three perspective. I think in terms of midfield, that's been a pretty big topic of conversation for us so far this season in terms of playing that too. Thankfully, it seems like that they also do. So it might be a game that actually it comes off really well. I think as Adam pointed out, Barr is looking decent in terms of that box to box type midfielder. But maybe if we have the experience in there of Baptiste and Nakamba, for example, or Tom Krause, then and they might be able to overrun the midfield. Clearly they've got Sissoko as well for experience, so that'll be a pretty interesting battle in the middle. But defensively, we need to be on it. I think the shout of Chatwood Hadley is absolutely the right one. I watched him for Georgia at the Euros, obviously not against England, but just in terms of the games in between, and he looked pretty electric, certainly on the counter. So I could foresee Watford playing a bit of a counter game where they try and get behind us and get behind a pretty high line, which we seem to do. So he's the one to watch. So having Mengi, or I'm not sure what side he plays for them, Chapman sort of he seems to switch, but regardless of who's on in those wide centre half roles, they need to be really on it. So whether Bell's back or whether you have Mengi on the left and Burke on the right, who knows? I mean, I think that also a few players got some knocks in the international break, which isn't overly positive. So yeah, there's quite a few matchups across both lineups that could be really interesting, even if you sort of take away the sort of back three v back three system setup.
I think that's really interesting point about the formations, and I've been banging the drum about us going back to that kind of 5-3-2 or 3-5-2. I think this weekend's a very good opportunity if everybody's fit to be able to do that and play to our strengths and go back to the traditional Morris and Adebayo up front. I mean, I fancy our chances against those three centre halves if you've got Morris and Adebayo central and causing the havoc that they do together. So if the team news comes out and that's how it reads, I for one will certainly be a lot more optimistic going into the game. If that comes out at 11:30 or whatever it will be.
With a player, I actually thought maybe we need to see in from the start alongside Morris is Jacob Brown. I think he's looked a threat when he's played. He looked a threat in the early stages against Oxford in particular, Jamie. And I think he is someone that could really cause some problems for them when they've got the ball in possession in defence.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, in terms of Ogbonna and Porteous, they're not exactly ball playing defenders. And you think if you can have someone like a Brown and Morris running at them in unison and really sort of coordinating that press really well, then that could be pretty scary for their back three. So yeah, I do love Adebayo. I think he's got all the characteristics to be able to hit the top level again, but it's just not really working out for him this season so far. So like last season, we had to take Morris out and throw Eli in to sort of get both strikers working back to their best. And I think maybe we might need to do the same for Eli, just for a few games, take him out of the firing line. We've got the players now to do it. As you say, Morris, Jacob Brown, both sort of a front two. If we go to a three, then you obviously can throw in Chong or Nelson as well in terms of making it that front three. So we've got the players to be able to drop Eli for a few games and just allow him to sort of build back into the season. So yeah, if we're talking starting 11s, I probably do go with Morris and Brown.
And do you think Chong comes back in from the start, Adam, if he's fit?
I think if he's fit, he will. Just think he's that flair player that we need, and someone that actually gets you kind of sitting forward on your seat when he gets the ball. And whether he comes in wide of the front three or whether he plays as one of those three kind of central midfielders. I mean, I personally think he can do both, and he can push on from that three to be in the hole type player as well. I don't think we've seen him too much there. I think we've obviously seen him more of a wide of a three. But yeah, for me, if he's fit, and I think it was like, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it the concussion thing at Plymouth that kept him
Yeah.
out? Yeah. So you think he's cleared of that by now, as long as he's not picked up anything else in training. He should be fit, ready to go, and for me, would come into the team.
Yeah, there's a lot of players we've been missing and on the fringes because of sort of knocks and injuries. So Jamie's mentioned Bell already, but at time of recording, we don't know who's going to be available. For me, I think someone that I really do hope is in from the start is Baptiste, because he is someone that has shown signs of transitioning from defence to attack really well, and that will be important against a Watford team that will probably sit off at times. Just before we go and do our score predictions for this one, I just wanted to discuss something we asked on Twitter. So we asked people to let us know if they think it's must win for Rob Edwards, and I wouldn't say the response is split, but it's sort of a mixture of yes and just must not lose, which I thought was interesting. And the other opinion that's coming across is that it won't be must win for the board, but it might be for the fans, Jamie.
Almost want to copy and paste my previous answer earlier on the pod. I think, yeah, for the board, I don't see them getting rid after a defeat on Saturday if we lose, because I think for me that would be actually even more disappointing, because you've had 2 weeks to be able to get rid and get someone in. So if he was really one game away from being sacked, then just do it earlier, because we know how important this game is. So you almost just sort of like stick in for the sake of it, just for this game. So I would actually be disappointed if the board sacked him after a defeat on Saturday if we lost. So I don't think they will. At the same time, from a fan perspective, if we do lose, then yeah, I do think some fans will be lost. I think for me, it will be entirely based on performance. I think we need to, if we don't win, we need to show the fans a really, really good performance, and it would need to be a defeat where we conceded like an own goal or something really like really sort of upsetting to concede. Um, I think that would be less important if we lose under those circumstances. Um, but yeah, there'll be some fans that regardless of performance, if we lose on Saturday, I think yeah that's sort of game over for them in their heads unless we go on a crazy one and go from there, right? So yeah, I think that there'll be a long way back for some fans if we lose on Saturday.
And that takes us perfectly into score predictions for this one. So, Adam, I'm coming to you first.
Yeah, I wish you wouldn't. I mean, look, I'll be positive about it, right? I think, let's say, we've had a good 2 week break, we've trained well, we've got players back fit that we didn't necessarily have available before. So I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet, but equally, I can't see them keeping a clean sheet. So yeah, I'll go for a 2-1 win, and that Kenilworth Road intensity will get us through.
I mean, I don't want to be boring and go for the same thing, but I was also going to go for a 2-1 win, and I'm going to stick with that because, same as you, I don't think either team has a clean sheet in them, but I think that home advantage and having really that real animosity at Kenilworth Road against Watford will be a bit of a game changer. So, Jamie, I'm going to come to you and hope that you have maybe something different.
Yeah, it's different. I think it's the same outcome. I think I can be nothing but a little bit optimistic going into Saturday. I think if people get themselves down before Saturday happens, then yeah, it's going to be a long day. So I think we need to go into Saturday as fans being upbeat and really supporting the lads to try and get over the line in 3 points. I'm going to go 1-0. I think it's a game that Edwards will want to win more than any other game this season. I think he would put in a lot of work over the 2 weeks about just going back to basics, doing the basics right, not doing anything stupid to go 1-0 down or whatever. So I really think it's going to be a case on Saturday of really going back to basics, really fighting for every ball. I think some of the players have lost a bit of fight, and I think Edwards will sort of lean on that over these past 2 weeks. Um, so I think it's going to be a really, really tight game. I think we'll play well, but not amazingly still. I think a lot of that will be based on just the fact that it's a derby and it's going to be fighting for every ball. It's going to be a bit stop start. I think the ref might. It depends on the ref, who the ref is, but in some circumstances, really breaks up the game and makes it hard to gain any element of fluidity or sort of just sort of time on the ball. So I think it's going to be a really sort of broken up game, a real fight. But I think we'll come out on the right end of it as victors 1-0.
Okay, so that's 1-0 win from Jamie, and both me and Adam have gone for 2-1 wins. We want to know your score predictions as well, so let us know in the comments of this if you're watching it on YouTube, or tweet us at Oak Road Hatter. Just before we go to a break, I've got a question for today's pod, and that will be, who is Luton's key player going to be against Watford? And we would love to know your thoughts on that. I think for me, it's Baptiste, as I've previously mentioned. Jamie, who would yours be?
Tom Kraus, I think, just think in that press in the midfield. We'll go on to onto the predicted Luton lineup, but yeah, that midfield three. If we can get Nakamba, Kraus, and Baptiste in the middle, I think that could be really strong for us.
And Adam?
I'm going to go for Chong. I think we get him on the ball. I think he will scare their defenders as he does with a lot of defenders as well. So yeah, for me it'll be Chong.
We want to know your thoughts on that one. So, as always, let us know on social media or in the comments. It could come back to bite me when Baptiste doesn't start. But we're going to go to a quick break now. And when we get back, we'll be giving our predicted lineups for the game and also talking a bit about England. Welcome back to Oak Road Hatter, where I'm still joined by Jamie and Adam. And now we're going to talk about our predicted or maybe hopeful teams for Saturday's match. Jamie, I'm gonna start with you, and I mean the goalkeeper for all of us picks himself.
Yeah,
I think he picks
yeah,
himself 10 times over. So we
yeah.
won't even discuss Kaminsky being dropped because he's not going to be, and no one wants him to be. But we'll go into defence, and I'm going to start with you, Jamie. And Adam, if you disagree, just jump in and let us know.
So yeah, I think back five is what it's going to be at this point. I can't see it changing, especially when you play a team that also plays a back five. So um, yeah, I think back three stays the same in terms of Bert McGuinness and Mengi. Some question marks over both McGuinness and Mengi's fitness, but I think the Ireland manager came out in the press conference saying McGuinness should be okay for Saturday. Mengi also came back from the 21s, but again, there's usually a spout of what in FPL they call international break injuries. I think Saka's the worst for it, where he always seems to get injured at England and suddenly starts for Arsenal. So I'm hoping that they're in the same bracket as that. So yeah, Burke, McGuinness, and Mengi back three, and then yeah, Doughty left, Walters right, wing back. I think yeah, to an extent it picks itself.
Yeah, you say that. I do wonder with Moses as an option now whether I would be more inclined to go for Moses as at right wing back. Um, I think Walters. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure of this game for Walters in terms of like being very inexperienced in sort of first team football, and then you've got someone with the pedigree of Moses potentially sitting on the bench. So for that reason, I'd be more inclined. Absolutely agree with the keeper and the rest of the defenders. I would be inclined to go with Moses at right wing back and be try and be that little bit more aggressive. I think.
I think Walters starts, but if it's not looking threatening, I think Moses probably comes on in the second half. But I wouldn't be surprised if Moses started as well. It's a difficult one to predict. Again, Walters is another player that there was talk of him getting injured in the international break as well. So it's difficult to say what's his condition at the moment, Jamie.
Yeah, I think as well just talks to what I was saying in the first half in terms of going back to basics, and I don't think I think Edwards' worst case scenario nightmare on Saturday is going 1-0 down inside 15 minutes. I think that would be absolutely like no, cannot happen because he knows it will be um he knows it might turn a little bit hostile. So if anything, I think Edwards would shake hands on 0-0 at half time. And I think that's just the mindset he'll go into the game. I think he's not that sort of manager, but I just think based on the start of the season, he just wants to try and get some fans on side and have a really good battling first half. So I think having a bit more of a defensively minded player who can get forward. Okay, he's not an attacking winger like Moses. I think clearly Moses is the more sort of threatening going forwards, but Walters isn't sort of a stiff wing back either in terms of getting forward. So yeah, I just think defensively will be the priority at wing back on Saturday, which is why I sort of just lean towards Walters.
I mean, I think the question is Walters or Moses, and I think the rest of the defence probably set in stone already. It gets difficult as you move forward. Um, I struggled when I was putting my team together, and I'm sure everyone else has as well. But the one player I think is definitely starting will be Nakamba. If either of you disagree, please let me know. But for
No,
me, I've then gone Baptiste alongside Nakamba with Chong. I say just ahead of them, but obviously the way that Edwards likes to play, he could probably drift wide with Eli or Morris drifting or Brown drifting around as well. So I just want to get to what did you think about that midfield, Jamie?
for me, I think just based on signings in the summer and who we've got in the midfield, I think our first choice midfield, if it's a three, is Nakamba, Kraus, and Baptiste. I think the signings were done with in mind of doing this sort of midfield two and then front three formation. So I don't think that was Edwards' preference in terms of going into the season. But I just think based on what's happened, we've all said in terms of the midfield too, and having a bit of sort of structure into that midfield. He's done it a little bit already by dropping Clark in there against Oxford. I just think he would just switch to that midfield three, and as much as I think Chong can do it, because I think he's shown enough out wide in terms of defensive sort of desire to get back and support Doughty or Walters or whoever he's sort of playing alongside or in front of at wing back. I just think playing Chong as an 8 in a game like this is it's a big call. So I think having a more structured three in terms of Nakamba, Kraus, and Baptiste is probably what I would do, and I would be surprised to see that. Of course, Chong could play number 10 and have a sort of a midfield two in terms of Kraus and Nakamba or Baptiste and Nakamba, whatever two you want to put behind him. But I just think we'll have a bit more of a structured midfield three in terms of that three that we played in that last season in the Championship.
Yeah, I think I called out Chong as my guy on Saturday, and what he's about and what he can do. But I'd love to see him play, whether it is in that kind of like in front of Nakamba and Kraus and making that big call, or whether it's the way Edwards prefers to set up or seems to prefer to set up in that front three. So that would be my preference, that Chong would be in there somewhere. But I do think Edwards, as Jamie rightly said, probably will look to get that three in midfield that are like out and out centre mids. So I would say that if we're talking about what will happen, you're probably looking at Kraus, Nakamba, and Baptiste. If it was me, it would be Kraus, Nakamba, and Chong somewhere around that midfield slash floating role in my mind.
Again, it's a difficult one to predict, that midfield. It gets a bit more difficult when you go forward with the fact that we know how much Edwards loves Eli, and Eli's been really struggling so far this season. And Brown came in, he looked positive, he was a threat, particularly in that press, and Morris is the captain. So for me, it was difficult, but I actually do think Edwards will go with Morris and Eli, just because he knows what they offer, and I think he trusts them both completely, Jamie.
Again, I don't think Edwards doesn't trust Eli. I think what he said in the press was accurate. I think he fully believes in him and trusts the player that he can be. But I do think he came out and said that when he had no choice but to play him because Morris was injured and Brown was just back from fitness. So I think he came out and said that because he knew he was starting anyway. So he didn't want there to be an air of, oh, is he going to drop Eli or not? I think he just wanted to nip it in the bud and say, look, Eli's starting, get behind him. Like, simple as that. But he's shown that he does drop a centre forward. He did it last year in the Prem. He gave Morris, what was it, 10 games to get into the Premier League, and he didn't really do too much. That Brentford at home game was his last game for a little while. Dropped him, and then played Eli, and then Morris came back in, and then had a pretty good end to the season. So he's shown that he can do it, and has done it. And I just think now we've got numbers in there. We've got Carlton Morris, who is our captain. So I think in most cases you start your captain. He's also the penalty taker, and I think if we get a penalty at the weekend, you need to have the best chance of converting that on the pitch, and that's Carlton Morris. So I think Morris is an absolute shoe-in. So then is it Brown or Eli? And yes, I think Eli is the more of an out-and-out centre forward, but I just think in terms of that off-the-ball work rate, I think Brown can drop in and make it a bit more of like a box in midfield. So you could have you could convert to a box midfield of Kraus and Nakamba sitting in front of Brown and Baptiste, and he can drop in and really make it a 5-4-1 if we need to go that way. So I just think Brown gives that bit more flexibility and changing things in the game. And as we said, both on this pod and previous pods, he is our best offensive presser. So in a game where you want to really put your rivals under pressure in what I hope is going to be a toxic atmosphere at the Kenny, you want to put their defence under pressure, and I think Brown will do that. I think Eli is also a good presser, but I just think Brown just has that bit more pressing with intent that Eli sometimes lacks. He presses, but just lacks that little bit of intent sometimes. So yeah, for me, I think Morris and Brown is that front two that they will go with.
Yeah, well, look, for me, it's Carlton and Eli, and I don't say that, not recognizing that Eli is bang out of form, because anyone can see that he is. I just don't think we've really. He's missed a lot of big chances, right? That stat stands for itself. But I do think we haven't necessarily played to his strengths this season in the formation, in the setup. I think, every time Eli's had a ball to him, he's had no one within sort of 10, 15 yards. So if we're talking about going back to basics and playing a bit more of a direct game, and, kind of looking at previous successes, for me, it has to be Morris and Adebayo down the middle together. I think if you're talking about 5, 6 games down the line where we've done that and it's still not working, Eli's still out of form, then I would absolutely say yes. There's a huge case for giving him a rest. So yeah, for me, it would be Morrison and Eli, and then potentially, you've got Brown, Joe Taylor on the bench. You've got some serious legs there around the 65, 70 minutes when Ogbonna, who's what, 74, 75, like Barry Bannon age, has probably had enough. So yeah, I would be keeping those sort of players, Brown and Taylor, on the bench for legs, towards the end of the game.
Of course, teams and team selection is a topic that's always debated and heavily debated, and we're sure you've got opinions over who you'd like to play. And another topic that has had a lot of discussion in recent days is the new England manager. And I teased earlier we'd be talking about England, and that is because we're joined by Mr. England, Jamie Castle. Um, Obviously, he told us earlier in the pod he went to Helsinki and watched England there. It's no secret that he follows England pretty much everywhere. And today, if you're listening to this, you won't be listening to this today. At the time of recording, England have announced their new manager or head coach is Thomas Tuchel. That's the former Bayern Munich and Chelsea head coach. And it's been met with mixed opinion. I think no one can deny how good of a coach he is, Jamie, and his track record pretty much speaks for itself. The thing that's got people questioning is, well, he's not English. Oh, he's a German manager.
Yeah, yeah. As Red Hatter's England correspondent, as you built me up to be. Yeah, I think there's no hiding from the fact that as a match going fan, there is a demographic of person that goes to England games home and away, and I think the majority might not like it. Um, Again, without going into too much obvious detail, quite clearly the fact that not only is he non-English, but the fact that he's German does add a bit of displeasure to that from what will be other England match going fans. But for me, I think with someone with a football hat on, I really like it. I think he's a manager that has managed at the elite level across 3 elite level clubs in particular. Well, 4 because you got Dortmund before that as well. But in terms of like the real sort of top, sort of like title competing sort of elite level teams. I mean, PSG, he won the league. Okay, it's not the best league to win, and it's a league that you expect him to win, but he won it, and he didn't lose it to other teams that weren't as strong as what PSG were. Went to Chelsea, won the Champions League, and I think what was his first season, beat Man City in a final. So he's played big games, big finals. He was clearly the underdog in that game and managed to beat a really strong Man City team. We all know how strong that team is. And won what Chelsea's second European title, which again, Chelsea aren't a team that expects to win that trophy year in year out. Then goes to Bayern again. He won the league in his first season, and then in terms of second, I mean, you had Bayer Leverkusen who were just electric that year, like absolutely electric. Um, they went the full season unbeaten, and actually when Bayern went to let go of Tuchel, I think he got a petition from the fans that was like 10,000 signatures for fans that wanted him to stay. So that just shows the fan view at the time that Bayern sacked him. But in terms of those 2 title wins in particular, I think he's shown that across what is, I think, it's a 38 game or 36, 34, whatever game season it is in the Bundesliga, and then similar in France. He's shown over a long period of time that he can be the stronger team and break down weaker sides that will come and play on the counter or play a low block. And I think there's no getting away from the fact that England should be the Bayern Munich or PSG of international football. We've got the players that we are now, that level of team that we should be expecting to go into games and winning the large majority, if not all of them. So he's been able to do that at club level. Of course, there's question marks in terms of transitioning from club to country, but fundamentally, I don't think you necessarily need to be a tactical genius at international level. I think if you look at the caliber of managers that have been at international level, that none have been like extremely great tactically. So he has something that a lot of international managers don't. And yeah, he's shown across his stints that he can do a bit of both. I think he plays a back three more than not, but he played a back four at Dortmund, so he can flex it. Kane seems to love him from when he played under him at Bayern. So I think there's a lot of things on there that I think points to it being a good appointment on paper. Now, whether it feeds into that, who knows, right? I think you can only make the judgment based on what you have in front of you at the time, and I think on that it's a good appointment. But then a big one for him is that he needs to get off really well, because I think if he starts slowly, then the dissenters that are against him just due to the sort of the name on the passport, I think I think that could quickly unravel. I think there'd be some certain right-wing newspapers that will have some pretty damaging, not only back but front pages when or if we get off to a slow start.
I mean, I just want to clarify: we do not follow any particular newspaper, whether they are right, left, or centrist. So just clarify that. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it but much better myself, Jamie. And Adam, I'm going to come to you and see if you've got anything that can top what is a pretty concrete opinion and discussion from Jamie.
Well, I certainly can't top it, and I won't even try. But no, I mean, I don't follow England to obviously anywhere near the extent that Jamie does. I mean, sometimes I barely watch it on telly if I forget about it. I'm one of those, to be honest. But yeah, I don't have any issue with the appointment. I like it. I think if you lined up all of the CVs available and took away nationalities and names from the top of them, and you looked at someone's track record, his stands out head and shoulders above probably anyone else that's available. There was talk about Pep, but that's, to me, was hearsay. So that's the way you got to look at it, and I think he's the best man for the job right now. So good luck to him. He might need it, as I say. If you don't get off to that quick start, he probably will need it. But yeah, looking forward to seeing kind of what he changes, and he'll certainly have the respect of the players from the first training session, which I think will be really massive. So yeah, let's see how that goes.
But before all that, it's obviously a massive game for Luton this weekend as we host Watford. And today's question of discussion that we'd love to know your thoughts on is who will be Luton's key player against Watford. So we'll be sure to put that question on our Twitter, and we would love to hear from you. But from myself, from Jamie, and from Adam, thank you for listening.